A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 96th edition of the Together for Education webinar brought to you by Notebook. More than a year ago, we had started this series of webinars so that our teachers who are quickly coming to terms with new learning aids like Zoom could get a more hands-on experience of these platforms. What started as a humble initiative for familiarizing our teachers with online learning tools has now lasted for over a year. Today is episode 96. On the pandemic side, however, we have not seen tremendous improvement. In fact, we seem to be at a loss as to how to manage this new strain, and hospitals' resources across the country are being overwhelmed. Our thoughts and prayers go out to each one of you, and we really hope that you're doing well and staying safe. Over the last year, we have looked at a wide array of topics, but we have somehow never really tackled the big question of our assessment system, examinations, that thing at the end of the year that every student perhaps is a little scared of, however good they might be at their studies. Today we ask the question, is our assessment system really holistic? Does it really give us insights into the child's real ability or engagement? And we have some fantastic speakers lined up for you. So without much ado, let me introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Barrett. Mr. Barrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Barrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist, and we at Notebook are privileged to have him as a senior advisor. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Bayu. Is this okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear and see you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I've had a little problem with my laptop, so I'm going to do this very much ad lib. Good evening to you, Achin, Abhishek, Meghna, and everyone at Notebook, also to our esteemed panelists and those who have joined us today. So when we talk about holistic evaluation, my picture is that there are many inputs that various people involved with the child's development in school input so that we get a clear picture, a complete picture of the child. Every head of school, every principal would love to swivel around on his or her desk chair and hit a button and a child's entire profile just pops up. This would be wonderful, during parent-teacher meetings. It gives the principal a holistic assessment of the child. The problem is that most of our assessments today test only for intellectual status or how much the kid has learned. In most cases, it's how much the kid can memorize. So it comes down to just a memory test rather than how much new learning or how much new matter has this kid produced. They don't test for creativity or critical thinking or the higher level skills in the Maslow's triangle. Yeah. But the problem is that there are other aspects to a child, and these are the aspects that colleges should be looking for. Now, I know some good colleges that do look at a wider profile of a child, and many a good student has gotten to a good college based on his extracurricular performances. Employers too, yes, while they do look at degrees, I don't think anyone has looked at my college degree or seen how many marks I got. If I got jobs, it was based on other things that they saw or were willing to see. Now, if you look at just the intellectual part of the testing part of school, there are different types of assessments, and a good test would include the whole gamut of questions. You can have long answer questions, you have short answer questions. They both test different aspects of a child's learning. You have multiple choice questions, fill in the blank questions. You also have questions that test skill, application. Unless a test paper includes various types of questioning, you don't get a holistic view of the child. Also, I think most schools will practice this. You have four different periods of testing. You have a diagnostic test, which is usually administered before a topic or lesson starts. This gives the teacher a very good idea of where the child lies vis-a-vis other children. Because in a class, not everyone is at the same level. There are kids in the class who probably know more than the teacher on that topic, that particular topic. And so the diagnostic test, it just sort of pitches the students, into various categories with the teacher. So the teacher then can adjust the level of the lesson based on an average. The teacher could also give individual attention to the ones who are not very good, while the ones who are good could get individual research work. After the diagnostic test, I think you need to have formative assessments too, which is a way of not testing how much the kid knows, but through the test, the kid learns himself, the student learns himself. So when I set a comprehension in language, it's actually a formative assessment because the children are doing it themselves. They see for themselves. And if you give them a marking scheme, they could even grade and assess themselves. So formative assessments are assessments for learning because the child is teaching himself. Then you have what is called interim assessments, which are like periodical tests just to give the teacher an idea of how much the kid is learning as we are moving along. I think this is very important because if you take my own example, I was a math student in school and I was a good student, but somewhere along the line, somewhere between the calculus and the core geometry, I lost it. And at that stage, if my teacher had taken an interim assessment, he would have known that something is happening. Something is happening where I'm just not getting those marks. And before long, in 2 months' time, I was at the bottom of the class. I just hope that somebody had assessed me at that stage. And of course, they have the midterm exams and the end of term exams, which are the big exams which test the entire syllabus. And this is the summative uh, part of assessment, which I think is what most children hate because they've got to cram up the entire syllabus just for that last exam. And that is what scares children. If you have a semester system, or if you have interim learning, or you have formative tests, and if you have other sort of tests along the course of the year, the academic year, and all these marks are included and added, then that last exam, which is the most fearful exam, doesn't remain that fearful. And of course, I think tests are a necessary evil. While most kids and teachers hate tests, I think if you can't test something, you can't improve on it. So Shabayu coming to work in the morning and driving his car is actually a test. He's testing himself. And if he drives properly, it says something about his driving skills. And if he has an accident, he's got to take some learning from that. A doctor who's doing a surgery, that's a test every day. If I cook dinner, I'm being tested by the people who eat my food. So a boy or a girl running a race is a test which means the coach will be given some pointers on how the training changes, depending on how the child did the race. So all our lives, we are self-testing all the time. The other thing is that there are certain intangibles that schools find it hard to test. Like, what about attitudes? What about aggression? What about helpfulness? What about empathy? What about working as a team? Who tests these things? Now, this is an ongoing sort of assessment that only somebody close to the child, like a mentor or a housemaster or a class teacher, would know. And this is the sort of assessments that we do when we write counselor reports for children going to US colleges. I've written numerous counselor reports where I've really got to know this child. I've got to know this child for 6 years because I've got to put things like, is he honest? Is he hardworking? And not based on academic marks, but based on knowing this child, seeing him play games, seeing him eating. Does he share his food? there are so many intangibles that no written test can assess, and yet they are important. And I think a holistic view of a child is, apart from the intellectual testing, how he does in his academics, I think there's also a physical aspect, how balanced he is, what about his stamina, what about his endurance, what about his speed, his skills. Uh, a kid who's good at sport is a kid with talent. I mean, there are jobs for sports people today. So are we testing and assessing children for sports? What about emotional testing? The counselor has to have an assessment which is emotional for the child. What's his EQ like? Um, is he a manic depressive? Does he get high and low? Can he take the good with the bad? How does he take bad days? How does he take things when life is going tough for him? Emotional assessment is so important, because this is what is important for a child's overall picture. Then there is social abilities. Does he have friends? Does he make friends? Does he keep friends? Does everyone in the class shun this kid? These are assessments that have to be done by people who know the child. There are assessments which are occupational assessments, you know, uh, because we prepare children for work. We want children to leave school someday and get a job. So what does he know about the job market? Is he preening himself and preparing himself for the types of jobs that he wants to go into? So there's assessment on what sort of is he reading beyond the syllabus? Does he know enough about his job? Is he joining the right clubs? Um, Also, there's a sort of environmental assessment. How conscious is this child of the environment? There's no point having a kid who's a 99% case, but he knows nothing about caring for the planet. And I think that's an important aspect of any youth today in the workplace. You know, is he conscious about saving electricity? Is he conscious about resources, recycling? Or is he just callous about these things? There's also the aspect of, and I think I talked about the physical, the social, the intellectual, the occupational, the environmental. These are all forms of assessment. At the end of the day, I, as a teacher, have found that generally, children who do well in in the other forms of assessment, like they're socially very, very mature, they're very good with sport, they're very good with the extracurricular, they also do well academically. It is not either or. There is no dichotomy in this. I think it is wrong to think that if you play too much, or you act too much, or you sing too much, you don't do well academically. On the contrary, I think children who do a lot of things are very, very intelligent and do very well academically also. I mean, they may not be the toppers, but they still are there, right on top. Um, so I think this is all that I remember from my notes, because my computer is still buzzing around. I will end here. At the end of the day, let me say that it is up to us to look for everything that a kid embodies. And I think it's important to send this kid out into the workplace after school with a correct assessment, an honest assessment of the child. I know I have refused to do certain reports for children, because I said, if I had to do a report for you, you may not get into that college of your choice, because I was going to speak the truth, and I was not going to jeopardize my standing with the college boards in the US or wherever, even UCAS. They ask for really deep assessments of these students. And I think with that, Shubayu, I'm going to hand this over. I'm so sorry that I have left out maybe a lot of stuff, but our esteemed panel and Achin will certainly take this forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. You have absolutely nothing to be sorry about. I think what you spoke about your experience in assessments uh, stands head and shoulders above everything else that we all could say. Talking about the test of driving that you mentioned earlier, uh, I'm sure that you know in Calcutta traffic, that is indeed a very tough test to pass every morning while coming to work. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on that lighter note, it is now time to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CP Australia. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubha, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a topic which introspects the objective of our education system and the yardsticks which we employ to measure relative outcomes. Now, at times, at least in the short run, assessment outcomes define a student's career trajectory. Of course, only in the short run. In the long run, there are a lot of other factors. But in the short run, factors like simple things in terms of higher education institutions that he or she gets to enroll in, the courses or the streams that you choose, scholarship that you can avail. Hence, it's absolutely necessary that the criteria we employ to assess learning outcome should be A, rational, B, fair, and C, very, very important, something which is in line with what the larger world outside the campus actually expects from a student who walks out of the main gate. And when I say what the larger world expects, definitely the larger world doesn't expect or doesn't value someone who can memorize well. Rather, the larger world look forward to someone who can actually apply that knowledge and be productive. Indeed, add value to other people's lives. Now, holistic assessment refers to the process of using multiple sources to continuously gather information on a child's development, to provide feedback, to support and guide learning. So it focuses on aspects like achieving quality, balance, and child centricity in school assessment system, support decision making, and increase student motivation and success in learning. Now, what are the characteristics? So when we say holistic assessment, what actually are the characteristics? I think very important, focus on building knowledge, as I was referring just now. The real focus has to be on building solid knowledge and conceptual clarity, and not mere reproduction of facts and opinions. It should require learners to reflect on their knowledge and basically relevant thinking, solution-oriented approach as to how to actually apply that knowledge in real life scenario, case studies, etc. Now, teachers use assessment information formatively to adjust instruction and provide students with feedback and targeted practice to move learning forward. So in holistic assessment, students also, they have a huge role, in terms of whether that be in terms of clarifying their intentions, learning intention, assessing themselves and one another, especially in little higher grades, in higher education. Of course, today when I'm discussing the topic, again, more from a macro perspective. So we have a great esteemed panel today who I'm sure will share their own real life examples, case studies with regard to classroom scenarios. But from a more macro perspective, I think one very, very important aspect whenever we discuss this topic of holistic assessment anyway is peer-to-peer assessment. Also setting goals for improvement. That is the ultimate aim of learning. The ultimate aim of assessment is to identify areas where we can actually work and improve on learning outcomes, and also continuously tracking and communicating the progress. That is the objective. Constructive feedback. Now, there are different strategies. So I'll say 4 key strategies when it comes to implementing this holistic assessment. I think first and foremost, developing a systematic implementation approach. Also, building capacity of the institution, say a school and teachers, providing resource support and engaging stakeholder support. When I say stakeholder support, all relevant stakeholders of the educational ecosystem. Now, schools which adopted more child-centric holistic reporting system. So, and various terms, like say, for example, holistic report card, a very, very important thing, which really actually tries to capture things from a more overall perspective. Development portfolio, pupil progress report, to give parents a more fuller picture of their child's holistic development, which actually enables greater student involvement in communicating their learning. So maybe a parent-teacher interaction, parent-teacher-child, sitting together and discussing, which will actually help in developing the confidence of learners. And student actually needs to, gets an opportunity to share with parents and teachers what they have learned, their reflection, their goal, and how they can be supported. So this reflection is very, very important. So absorbing something, ensuring conceptual clarity, reflecting on the same, being assessed at times by the teacher, by peers, self-assessment, identifying areas of improvement, working on them, and continuous tracking of progress. Now again, to improve teachers and school leaders' competency, I think there's also something called capacity building framework, which is very, very important. Say, for example, seminars, workshops, inter-school networks, teacher learning communities, peer lesson observation and feedback. So an entire support system needs to be built. Now, another very important aspect, and especially when it comes to larger community, for example, a big chain of schools engaged in holistic assessment, and we'll cover a small case study as well. So the concept of holistic assessment portal may actually provide ongoing support through access to digital resources and tools, and a platform for sharing ideas and experiences, which is very, very important. Now, online portal definitely offers a more cost-effective and efficient approach in terms of disseminating resources and knowledge across many schools. Now, I'll share a very small case study here. In 2009, and I'm discussing about Singapore. In 2009, Singapore Primary Education Review Implementation Committee, the short form is PERI, made recommendations to realize a more holistic approach to primary education. Now, the key recommendation of this was holistic assessment to support student learning and development. The objective was building confidence in students, and increasing their desire to learn so as to prepare them for a better future. And with this objective, the project was born. Now, what was the impact? What was the effect? Now, this project was implemented across 190 primary schools, 190, in Singapore. And we are discussing about 2011. 2009, they started, and again, assessment in 2011. Now, project progress was reported annually in formative evaluation, as well as through various internal and external sources. Now, it took time to roll out. Full rollout happened in 2011. Now, primary schools have post that, when feedback was taken from schools, the educators were asked, the parents were asked, and the feedback is they have ranked holistic assessment as one of the most beneficial initiatives, as one of the most beneficial initiatives of the Ministry of Education for the past 4 years. So in 2015, they were finally asked, they said that full rollout happened in 2011, and for last 4 years, we believe this is one of the best projects. Now, they had some early reservations. Initially, when this was being implemented, people thought, fine, the theory looks good, but how will it be implemented practically? What are the benefits? What are the challenges? But feedback has been overwhelmingly positive in supporting students' learning and development and increasing teachers' confidence in delivering quality classroom assessment. Students also enjoy learning with more increased confidence and motivation to learn, which were the twinfold main objective: increasing confidence and increasing their interest level in terms of learning. Now, they're more aware of their strengths and areas of improvement today than what they were earlier, and are given more opportunity to communicate and are far more engaged in terms of their lesson, participating actively in class and taking more ownership for their own learning. Now, regular feedback also allowed parents, and I'm discussing about the same Singapore project, this actually allowed parents, as evident from a survey that was done. The parents said that we are happy because it actually allows us to actively engage and better support child's learning and development. Schools were supported with self-evaluation, tool, resources, in order to review their own assessment systems on a yearly basis and refine, at any system. At the end of the day, when you implement it, naturally there'll be glitches. It calls for tweaking, customization, so that refinement happen on an annual basis. Now, beyond the startup phase, capacity building, resource support cost, there's a little additional cost. Once the system was implemented fully, additional year-on-year cost was nothing substantial. So I think this was one thing that I wanted to share in terms of the Singapore case study. And this has actually been embedded in the Singapore primary school curriculum for well-rounded learning. And and also internationally, it received a lot of recognition, with numerous overseas education delegates expressing interest in adopting holistic assessment practices in their own respective education systems. So this is one of the most important case studies whenever we discuss about holistic assessments. Now, coming to implication. So I believe the use of holistic assessment may have a lot of potential benefits. Now, students who undergo or who go through a system like this are in a far better position to make more holistic judgments, can widen their skills, and it makes it far more practical. And I'm discussing about higher education, not only essentially school education. It makes it far more practical for them to justify their stand in any real life scenario when they go out to work, or when they debate or discuss on an issue. And I'm discussing about constructive arguments that students also do with peers, with faculty members, because we were discussing about peer-to-peer assessment as well. Now, teacher-derived feedback definitely is important. There's no doubt about it. But also, what we were discussing earlier, peer-to-peer feedback also is very, very important. Another positive implication that actually is one of the most positive, I think, implications of holistic assessment is students become far more competent to handle assessment tasks accurately. And why do I say so? Because, through holistic assessment, students become far more decisive and acquire more investigative skills, because you are actually expected to apply your knowledge in a real life scenario, in a case study, in terms of problem solving. And thus they learn how to construct concrete responses to questions that they are asked. So I think this definitely is a great benefit. Now, coming to peer-to-peer assessment, again, a lot of advantages and disadvantages. As a, for example, we were discussing about advantages. One of the challenges in peer-to-peer assessment always that some students may lack the self-belief to assess their peers' work effectively. And why so? Because this is because of a view that many people share that the idea of assessing is the sole responsibility of the assessor, but which is not the case. It's a two-way responsibility. Thus, in this particular system, student also contributes to his or her own learning journey, learning process. So I think very, very important. Also, incorporation of holistic assessment is, in a design of a curriculum, because if we look at the whole thing, it has to start from the curriculum itself, because it plays a very important role, essential part in contributing to a student's learning outcome. Thus, incorporation of holistic assessment in the design of a curriculum actually helps the learners to develop a more deep approach in learning that contributes to their understanding of the coursework materials. In addition, aspects like, for example, to understand real-life tasks, provide more challenging situations, simulations, different simulations. So which are actually very important, because this is more task-based. We are discussing about a more task-based system. So these are some aspects that I wanted to discuss. So I believe that now coming to, if we look at holistic assessment from a more overall perspective, and we also discuss about the advantages as well as a little bit of challenges that are involved. So I believe that despite significant advantages which are associated with application of holistic assessment in student learning, the application of various assessment methods need to be tailored in a way that it will enhance the student's personal strength. Thus, academicians who are involved in designing curriculum should ensure that it incorporates various holistic assessments to improve students' learning outcome. So I think these are a few things that I wanted to discuss. We have a great panel today, and I really look forward to the deliberation on this very important topic. Over to you, Shibai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for sharing that wonderful case study in Singapore and your thoughts about the topic today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we have a stellar panel lined up for you. But before that, I'll take a couple of minutes from you to tell you a little bit about Notebook. We at Notebook are an edtech organization. We make small videos tailored to the school curriculum. These videos come in handy in two cases. One, when you as a teacher have to teach a class, you can share these videos prior to starting the class or even play them within your class, whether the class is happening online or offline. What these videos do is they give your students a more visual hook onto the chapter that you're teaching. Months later, the students have access to the same videos on their personal devices. A laptop, a smartphone, or any personal device at home can be used to access the notebook videos. And then students can use them not only to revise the topic, but also to get reminded of what you had taught in class the day you taught using this video. Today, since we're talking about assessments and exams, some part of the notebook content is tailored specifically to help students answer exams better. One of the things that we realized when we spoke to a lot of students and teachers is that, particularly in a subject like biology or other science subjects, often how well a student understands the drawing of a particular diagram determines the outcome of an examination question. So we at Notebook decided to create something called Diagrams Made Easy, a series of videos that just teaches the students how to draw their diagrams better. What I'm going to do now is play a short snip of one of those Diagrams Made Easy videos. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was one of those diagrams made easy videos. Our studies across hundreds of students have shown that students feel much more confident drawing these diagrams once they have gone through these videos. In addition to the videos, we also place some question and answer, a question bank in the notebook website and web app. What this means is students feel better prepared to tackle questions that might be asked of them during the examination. However, today what we are discussing is whether exams are the only form of assessment possible or whether we should look at assessments more holistically. And to shed greater light on the topic, we have a fantastic panel lined up for you. I will just take a couple of minutes to introduce our wonderful panelists to you. We have with us Monisha Datta. Born into a family of scientists, educationists, and defense service professionals, ma'am has always been encouraged to dream of the impossible and then to make it happen. She did her education from different parts of the country. Living in different parts of the world encouraged her to take up different forms of arts from a young age and become passionate about wildlife, conservation, and different forms of art and music. She started her career as a software developer and corporate trainer after completing her master's in computer science and later an MBA in advertising. Always a favorite with children, she soon realized that corporate world was taking her away from her area of passion, children, writing, music, and art. She thus decided to move away from the corporate into a challenging world of boarding schools. She has been the co-founder of the Doon Girls School and Dehradun Boys School. Since her early years into teaching, she realized the need of relooking at teaching and making it more about learning. Learning both for the educator as well as the students. This got her involved into actively designing child-centric curriculum and pedagogies along with training the teachers. Ma'am is also a trained vocalist, painter, and novice equestrian. Also a passionate wildlife enthusiast, nature lover, avid reader, and trekker. A person with a presence in the education sector for the last 20 plus years, she is currently involved in understanding the global education systems and in devising curricula and pedagogies for early childhood education and senior school based on global requirements. You learn till you die is a philosophy and driving force. She is currently the director of the Doon Girls School and also the director Learning Forward Academy, part of Learning Forward India Foundation, and is actively involved in teachers training and development. She is also a regular speaker at seminars and conferences and actively involved in projects to do with mental health in youngsters and young adults. Ma'am, thank you so much for making the time and being here with us today. We also have with us Dr. Ambika Prasad Gaur, who holds a BSc, an MA in English, a B.Ed, an MBA, and a PhD. Sir originally hails from Uttarakhand, has experience of about 30 years in the field of education. He has worked as PGT, an assistant professor in management institution in Noida. He is an educational consultant with Nobel laureate Kailash Satyarthi in Delhi and presently working as principal at SOS Hermann Minor School in Varnasi. He has also authored more than a dozen books in Hindi and English. Sir, thank you so much for making the time and being here with us today. It's a privilege to host you. We also have with us Monika Swami. Ma'am is currently working as principal in Divine International Girls School, a residential girls' school. She has completed her BTech in computer science, and after serving 8 years in schools, she realized her inclination towards counseling and then qualified herself professionally in guidance and counseling and worked as student counselor for 3 years and understands students with empathy. Ma'am, thank you so much for making the time to be with us here today. I will stop my share now, switch on the camera so that we can see each other and start the discussion. Once again, thank you for being here. It's an absolute privilege to host all of you. If I may come to Monisha ma'am first. Ma'am, we are talking about holistic assessment today. In the current school education system, we have assessments, which are exams at the end of the year. But do you think our existing assessment system is geared towards understanding the child holistically?
Thank you, Shubhayu, for the question as well as inviting me over. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, loud and clear.
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. So, no, actually, our education system is neither holistic and nor our assessment systems holistic. Our education system is basically a very old system. We were cut out to be good office handlers, if you look at it. Our education system actually belongs to the era when we did not have computers. There was no Google. I was just looking at the video that you were showing. And I was thinking to myself, now to create something like this, I don't really need to know what all is happening. I need to know how do I create? I need to be a visualizer. I need to be a dreamer. I need to have the ability to think, be creative. Whereas our education system is completely hardwired into testing by rote. So whatever we learn, we are taught that way. And then when we are talking about being assessed, that's exactly the way we are assessed. A lot of schools have changed the way they're teaching in today's date and time. There is experiential learning, there's project-based learning, all those kinds of things have got introduced, outdoor learning. But when it comes to assessment, we again go back to the standard system because the college admissions and everything after school is based on that assessment system. So of course our education, maybe our education system is slowly shifting into the holistic mode, but our assessment system is completely still checking the knowledge, and that also as per the norms given by the various boards. It is not checking. So even when we talk about the assessments, it's more based on procedures than concepts. So if you know the procedures, if you've learned the procedures by heart and you can put them on the paper, then you're good to go. But if they take a deep dive into concepts are not being tested. There'll just be a 2% or a 5% paper testing on concepts. And that is why a lot of people who qualify for their IIT and other college exams also are not capable enough to handle the content or the curriculum that is there in the first year. And like Mr. Barrett very well said, that when we're talking about education, we talk about education. See, education, basically the purpose is to deliver the child into the world. They should be able to cope up with everything. Education, by definition, says you are training them you're giving them instructions to be successful. So once that is done, then they should be able to cope up with whatever comes their way, which is not actually what is happening. We are teaching them how to learn by heart. And then we are expecting our assessment system is also working around that particular pattern. So no, our assessment system is not holistic at all. Not as of now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Dr. Gaur, if I may come to you next. Ma'am obviously told her views. I would particularly ask you to talk about this kind of students that, sir, you deal with on a regular basis or even as part of Mr. Satyarthi's initiative. That particular layer just seems to lack that additional innovative drive that we find in bigger schools.
Yeah, it was a long time back, Achin. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. And, just enlightening me also with the discourse of the other two persons who have spoken earlier. Actually, I was with Mr. Kailash Satyarthi long time back. It was around 2000. And I was there as a project consultant working on a project based on, the export-oriented industries. I was the consultant of that particular project there. After I quit the management college there in Noida. But for the last 20 years or so, I mean, basically in school education. So far as, your question is concerned, that, the entire topic of this discussion is concerned, that is about the holistic assessment. So, Achin, I would like to point out here, very frankly, that our system has been given, this education system of India has been given by Lord Macaulay. And unfortunately, we have still not come out of that particular, the shadow of Lord Macaulay. The Britishers wanted the Indians to be the good babus, only the collects, in fact, right? They were never interested in that we should be well educated or we should go to the higher positions, but simply just to facilitate them in the day-to-day activities, just a simple clerks and simple babus. That's why that term babu also came up. So unfortunately, somehow I do believe, as ma'am has told just now, that still we are at that level only. Of course, there has been some changes. There have been some changes. We have, we are gradually shifting from the traditional ways of assessment towards the more modern ways of assessments. Somebody in the panel has already told about soft skills and emotional intelligence and project-based learning, etc., etc. We are, of course, coming to that. But still, there's a long way to go. But I'm definitely hopeful that as we have also started in CBSE schools, there are, these skill subjects are there. They are being introduced. They are introduced, some of them. Then we have got the value education. We have got the soft skills, and gradually the people are also definitely they are being assessed from that way also, or they will be assessed now onwards on that particular way. Of late, there have been some sort of initiative taken by the various boards, like formative assessments and then summative assessments. So basically, they're peer learning. Then rather than only focusing on the school as part of the being the assessor, there have been the other parts also, like family. Then your peers also. There has been a term coined as peer assessment. There has been a term coined as family assessment, and there has been other terms also coined. That assessment of a child will be based on the various aspects now, and a child will be assessed not only by the teachers, not by the school only, but it will be the child will be assessed by the various other people also, so that wholesome personality aspect is calculated or is assessed, rather than only based on the rote learning that you are learning by heart, cramming for about 1 year, and then in 3 hours of paper you are just ejecting out everything whatever you have learned during the 1 year. Then at the end of the semester, at the end of the session, you are just you are writing that, and that's too within 3 hours. So that cannot be a real assessment of a child, right? So of course, these sort of webinars and these sort of small initiative taken by the people like you will definitely enlighten the educationists also, and will definitely have some impact in our education industry, if not today, by tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We have been doing this thing for a little over a year now, and I don't know about enlightening the educators, but we for sure as a team have benefited tremendously from all the wisdom that people like you have shared on this platform. So thank you so much for being here. Monika, if I may come to you next. Ma'am, when you look at assessment, yeah. Ma'am, if I may look at the assessment system, do you find it holistic enough?
Yes, Shubhayu, thank you so much for inviting me. And I will start with 2 examples. Once I read about one girl. She came from Varnasi and she got admission in Lady Harding, LSR College in Delhi. Right? She got 99% marks, and when she came there, because of her appearance, she was typecast as Behenji, right? And for a year, she was in depression over there. So, whose fault is that? According to our assessment, she got 99% marks. So, we have assessed that girl. She is 99%. She is scoring 99%, and she is approximately perfect. But where is the gap? Why she got in that depression for a year? Because of her appearance only. Definitely, there was some criteria where we were lacking in assessing that child, right? Second example is, in my school, there is a girl. She is learning, right? If I am asking any question, she knows each and everything. Means orally, she is attempting 100% answer. But while we are coming on writing something, she cannot express herself. So when we are teaching some child, so the writing criteria is the only assessment. In our current uniform assessment pattern, we are having 90% on pen paper test. So the students who cannot express themselves by writing, it means they are not learning anything. Right? So this is not at all holistic assessment, because a student who can write, they are the toppers of the class. The students who cannot express themselves by writing, they are nothing in the class. And this is the scenario actually on the ground reality. The students are looking others if they are scoring very good marks in their written exams. So they are the toppers of the class, they become monitors of the class, and the students, those who cannot express themselves, they are not anywhere. So according to me, the current approach is not at all holistic assessment. We need to think about the different criteria because, as Albert Einstein said, everybody is having different ability. When we are talking about like holistic development, we know that in CBSE particularly, we are talking about, we are giving holistic development to the students, right? Then why we are not assessing holistically? The development is holistic, but the assessment is on one particular type of like parameters. Is this fair?
No,
Thank you so much.
of course not.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think that's a very interesting way to look at it. It almost reminded me of vector algebra. Uh, if there are multiple vectors that go into making one particular summation, why do you judge it based only on one direction? Very interesting assumption there. Dr. Gaur, if I may come to you next. So during this pandemic, and this is a question that we have also got from the audience, it
Yeah.
says that in this current situation, we are all undergoing a crisis. To what extent the validity and reliability of measures of assessment take place in the progress of learners? I will just take it one step further and say that most of our schools are doing their assessments online right now.
Yeah.
So and it is bringing to question the very validity of the assessment because there have been cases of parents writing the tests for their children.
Achin, can you come up again, please? The question is not
Yes, sir.
odd. Yeah.
Surely. Sir, I was saying that during this COVID pandemic, when
Yeah.
learning has happened online, a
Yes.
lot of assessments are also happening online.
Right.
Does it question the validity of the entire assessment system? Because now there are cases where parents are writing on behalf of their children.
Achin, actually, it depends on the parents also. That's why, parents are also to be assessed properly. And that's why, it's the right direction. We are moving in the right direction, right? That the child is being assessed by the school as well as by the house, by the home also. So parents should also be one of the assessees of the child. And in case, if we are able to take the parents also into confidence and then, we develop a strategy of assessing the child properly. Of course, we have to take for that matter, for that particular point, we have to take the parents into confidence. Once we do that, once we emphasize upon the parents that, well, you are also the part of the assessment, you are also the assessee of the child. So they will definitely monitor the child properly. And in that way, our assessment, our online assessment will also be effective. But once, the parents are like, earlier, as the traditional assessment method or approach was going on, well, only school has to do the assessment, only a teacher has to assess the child, only school has to do this thing, only school has the right to assess the child. So in case once, we go away from that traditional method and then, we involve the parents also, so they will also cooperate with us and they will definitely have a strict eye on the child, whether the child is cheating or whether the child is doing properly, fairly or not. So of course, it can depend on, again, we the educators. If you are able to convince the parents that you are also assessing the child, and that's what is needed, for your child. So in that way, they will also help us out in that. I have got, as a principal, I know that once, we are sending some question paper early in the morning hours, right? Say before 15 minutes or 10 minutes before the exam actually to start, online examination I'm talking about. So before that, we are having a chit chat with the parents through the parents group and telling them about this thing, that please make sure that your child uses the fair means. Okay, he does not make use of any unfair means. So to some extent it's effective. But by and large, nothing can be said about that, because once, the parents are not convinced enough, parents are not that much awakened in order to really assess the child, then it's a little bit doubtful. So it can be both the ways, Achin. Right? It can be fair, it cannot be fair. Yeah.
Thank you. Monisha, ma'am, if I may come to you, I'm going to make this a little more theoretical and ask you, is it fundamentally a problem in the assessment system that we incentivize unfair means. If the student has gone through a year of learning a particular subject, they should not ideally have to resort to unfair means to be assessed correctly. The teacher already knows if that student is engaged enough or not.
So, Shubhayu, this actually will eventually take us back to our teaching system. If we are doing holistic evaluation and holistic teaching, value systems would be an active measurement for us in school, right? So we would be talking about being honest, we would be talking about integrity, we would be talking about discretion, we would be talking about self-assessment. So those are things that we would be encouraging and measuring the children on it. Because when we are not doing holistic education and when we are not measuring them on those parameters, those don't exist for them. Like the other day also, we were having a discussion and we said that we felt that in today's date and time, it's considered to be a good trait if you're street smart, right? Whereas street smart is not a very positive word if you look at it. You need to be smart, but you don't need to be a person who is cheating people out of their hard-earned thing just because you want to be better off or visibly better than the other person. But because we are not paying attention to those things, of course, that has become a reason for it. Now, if I look at just the assessment system and seeing that online is giving me an opportunity in today's date and time to do holistic evaluation, at least assessment, at least, then there are different types of assessments that I can conduct. You know, when we're talking about holistic assessments, there is something known as reflective and reflection that you can teach the children to do, in it's a very simple way. So like I think Achin was talking about peer assessment, self-assessment, portfolio assessment. There are lots of assessments that we do which are holistic. One of the easiest way, or report writing, but one of the easiest thing is teaching them how to maintain a learning journal. So if you are giving a task to the child and telling them to reflect on what is their learning outcome out of that session, I'm sure they will not be using unfair means because they have to think. They have to look at it in a creative way and say, okay, fine, today we did this. Now, if I have to look at one learning outcome or one takeaway from this entire 45-minute session that I did, what was the takeaway I had? How am I going to connect this into the real life? So the moment you encourage children to work on something known as reflection and reflective practice, that is a very easy way to do it. And when they get into this habit of creating a learning journal, they are also seeing what are the best ways in which they can learn. If I'm doing a flipped class with them and they realize, okay, anything to do with games is something that they understand very well, or to do with wildlife, they understand. So they know that is the key area and they can request the teacher to give them more material to learn things according to that, right? So they also know how do they learn well. They map their learning assessments. They are also actively part in their own learning. And the teacher can also see which course material is effective, where do they start in their learning chart, and where do they end by the end of the lesson. So we can create our assessments in different ways. We don't need to assess them in the same way if we are looking at online assessment, because online teaching is different from my Blackboard teaching. So when my teaching method is different, my assessment method should also be different. So that's what I would like to add on as far as assessments online, creating a little holistic approach to it is there.
Wonderful, ma'am. I think Dr. Gaur wanted to say something. I saw you.
Yes, raising his hand.
Yes, why? Actually, ma'am, whatever ma'am has said about that assessment, whether it's children, online examination ma'am has talked about, rather than having it a pen and paper, question paper, in case if some sort of projects are given, and then the children are assessed based on the beauty or based on, the thought process that they have put into. So if we assess the children on that particular basis, so it's better that they will never cheat. Rather than having it, they can cheat, they can use the unfair means once we are just asking them for the pen paper assessment, right? But in case if some sort of projects are given or some other activities are given to do, so obviously, there are chances of are better that they will be definitely using the fair means only. So that is one of the things, and it's good. Again, I'm very hopefully and very emphatically, I'm telling we are on the right track. Rather than, it's a rote learning, and children are, every time they are using that pen and paper and cramming and writing something, it's better that we should make use some of the modern ways of assessment. Right? Right, Subhai?
Wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you, sir. I will just take a minute to narrate from a personal experience. This is from obviously my MBA days, so much older than the typical students that you deal with. In our final semester, we had this paper called Professional Ethics, which was one of those papers that MBA students hate to study, right? It is one of those papers that you have to kind of get through. We had one professor who came in who was a Jesuit priest, had gone to Harvard for his own MBA, and then come back and was teaching in a B school. And because the subject was professional ethics, we had that one slim book. And before the exam, we obviously marked up every single question at the back of the book and walked in for an exam that we didn't really care much about. The exam was for 100 marks. The paper had one question for 100 marks. How did you like this subject? Question mark. That was it. Each of us had to write subjective answers, and we were graded based on that. And I think that one thing has forever changed my approach to assessments and examinations. That's for a lifetime. Monika, if I may come to you next. Ma'am, you have a very interesting spectrum. On one side, you're a BTech computer science. On the other side, you have been trained as a guidance counselor, right? Ma'am, if you could help us understand the incentive to cheat in online assessments.
Definitely. I'm 100% agreed with Monisha, ma'am. See, there are two aspects here. One is we need to train our students to be morally high. They have to true to themselves, because the assessment is for them only. They need to understand there is nothing to show it off to others. How much they have learned, they have to show it. That's it. So being teachers, we need to teach them this thing, that it doesn't matter you are coming first in the class, second in the class, or last in the class. You need to just see the mirror, how much you have learned and how far you have to go. Simple as that. The meaning of assessment is this only, right? Second thing is we need to change the mode of assessment. If our mode of assessments are good, then definitely students will be they will give their true assessment, right? For example, when I was doing my guidance and counseling, at that time we were assessed as open book test. Okay, if we can open our books and still we are not having answers, what does this mean? That the concept was not clear. Okay, so this our teachers need to do a bit hard work. They need to twist the questions so that students, either their books are open, they need to give their concentration in the content. They just find out from the book, that is fine. The learning will happen. While they are writing from the book itself, the learning is happening over there also. Right? So we need to just change the mode of assessment, and the result, the assessment will be, I suppose, 100% honestly.
Wonderful, ma'am. Okay, let's try and get to some quantifiable takeaways, right? We have quite a lot of people listening in on this, so we would want to leave them with some takeaways. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come to each one of you, right, and ask you to design your complete blue sky thinking, ask you to design your own way of holistic assessment, right? Could be asking a guy to swim for 50 meters and then write a maths test. Could be anything that you consider holistic, right? And we'll see what ideas we come up with. Dr. Gaur, if you may start with you, sir. So your view of what the ideal holistic assessment should look like. So you're on mute.
Yeah, am I audible now, Subhai?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Right. Actually, CBSE has also come up, as I told earlier, the CBSE has come up with certain ideas like formative assessment and then summative assessment, and then these soft skills also they have come up with that. They have added one compulsorily is supposed to be taught in the schools. So I think if we assess the children based on their generosity, based on their empathic qualities, based on their sympathetic qualities, based means all these soft skills. So that will be, according to me, pen and paper will be a part of that. Unfortunately, in the higher educations, admission, even for the admissions and for the things, generally you are asking what has been the percentage of your examination, what was the percentage in class 10th, class 12th, etc., etc. So of course that will be part of that, till at least for some time, at least for some years it will be. The government of India has also come with the new education policy, and there are so many things. If you go through that, I'm sure that you must have already gone through that. But there are certain things, if we read that deeply and again read it, we'll find out that there are certain things there. Of course, that particular policy has also been drafted after due consideration and with the amalgamation of the ideas of the various great minds. So there is the answer to many questions. There is, in fact, if it is implemented in the coming years properly, so that will definitely for the part of very good assessment of the children. Right. As for me, we must go step by step, and more of these soft skills, more of these other qualities, more of the peer learning, more of the family learning, more of the environment learning and other things must be adopted now. That's for me.
Wonderful, sir. And I could not agree more on the NEP. I think it's a wonderful document. If implemented correctly, not just in letter, but in spirit, I think it can revolutionize our education system forever.
Yeah.
Monika, if I may come to you next now, what will be your idea of a new age holistic assessment?
Okay, Shubhayu, as this NEP has come up with this 360 degree of assessment, though they have not clarify what would be that 360 assessment parameters. They are working on that. But according to me, in holistic assessment, there would be all the aspects which a student is having. For example, that is physical aspect is there, mental aspect is there, academic, social, then their life skills are there, and emotional skills are there. Right? Everything should be assessed on some or other point of time. Okay. For example, right now, CBSE is having some art integrated projects. In that, we are assessing students on all of the areas. Okay, but the percentage of assessment is very low. According to me, see, we cannot eliminate this writing part. Writing part, definitely that is important. Memorizing part is also important. But that should be of a particular percentage. For example, according to me, if I want to design that, then I will design it as 50% of the writing portion and 50% of the projects which are given during the year, in which the student is assessed on all the other parts. Like when the student is going out in the field of work, when you went to that work place, or when I went to that workplace, then I was thinking, what was I studied for whole of the life? That I am not nothing is there. In computer engineering, when I was developing the software, that things at that time we were studying, that was not at all of use. तो मैंने 4 साल झक मार ली, कुछ नहीं सीखा. That should not be done actually. This was a wastage of time for the students. We are not telling them how to handle the pressure. We are not telling them how to work in pressure. We are not telling them how to be happy in life. Then what they will learn from our education system. So all these things are very important because they see students are learning on the basis of assessment only. When we'll assess them on writing, they will just memorize the thing. When we'll assess on other criteria, they will try to be good in that also. When we will assess them in the part of how they are working in team, definitely they behave properly in the team. When we'll assess them on life skills, definitely they will come up with with their good nature, they will come out. But we are not assessing them. They are bullying in the classes. That is fine with us. They are teasing others. That is fine with us. So according to me, academic part is 50% and rest of the things which are more important in the workplace today. Because if you're having like 98% marks in your academic and you are not able to adjust in the workplace, nobody is going to nobody is going to bear you for a long time in that company. So that is also important over there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I can totally relate to the experience that you're talking about. I did civil engineering, 4 years of it. Land up at a construction site. Somebody says there's a pokelin coming, and I'm racking my brains as to I have no idea what a pokelin means. It was not in any of my 4 years of syllabus. Then I see this earth moving equipment coming, and that's when I, finally figured out that what it means in real life. Thank you so much, ma'am. Monisha, ma'am, if I may come to you next. We would ask you to put on your corporate training hat and design a 360-degree feedback.
Mine is going to be comparatively very simple. I'm just going to give the child a year to teach the next batch, same level. Handle it. So all your skills are tested, whether it is AQ, EQ, social skills, everything. So the assessment is going to be whatever you have learned in this year, pass it down to the next batch and ensure that they are at a level where you are confident and you're happy that they're able to move into the real world. That's what I would do as my assessment system. Nothing elaborate.
I think that's quite innovative. I think that's a great idea, and a lot of people listening in here, you might consider asking your students to do that. Go to the junior class, teach a few classes, and see how they fare.
Actually, while you are teaching, there are so many skills that you learn. So if you forget a same level child, tell them to do a class junior, they can't handle it. And all of a sudden they start realizing, oh God, this is like a tough thing to do. When we were struggling with cleanliness on our campus, because our kids come from very affluent backgrounds. So for them, they drop things and somebody else is supposed to come and pick it up. So when we were struggling with that concept, the only thing we did was every Sunday, go to the entire area, clean it up and come back. After the first day, they were dead tired. From that day, our helpers are the best people they're treating them with. There's so much, because according to them, they never realized the hard work that is done. They never realized that the area did not have dustbins. They did not realize that people are dropping each and every stuff. Since that day, all the vehicles have got bags in it. They actually raised funds and got dustbins put in the area, which they created, painted, and fining us because we used to leave electricity on. We were teaching them sustainability and electric conservation and everything. So they started fining all of us only. Staff room light on, staff room fan on. So 10 rupees they would collect, and eventually then they also realized the struggle with the government system. Because when we wanted to put dustbins, they realized you can't just go around putting dustbins. You need permission. And nobody comes to visit your site. They keep saying, please, we'll come over, but nobody does. So, that made them understand the importance of it. So I think that is the best way of learning. Tell them to teach a class for a year, not for a day or two. They have to ensure that child is up to that level when they get out of that class. So
wonderful, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I could continue the discussion all day long, but we'll have to cut it short at some point. Once again, thank you so much for your wonderful inputs. It really was a fantastic discussion. Achin has a lot to thank for in the vote of thanks. So Achin, over to you.
Thank you so much.
I think really great discussion we had and some wonderful points, some great takeaways for our esteemed educators as well from this session. Monika, ma'am, I think very nicely, ma'am, you highlighted a few aspects. I think especially the way you started off, that where is the gap? That I think is very important. Students were doing extremely well in academics, but at a point of time, if they're facing any kind of challenge. So I think that really calls for self-introspection. And when I say self-introspection, not only for the student concerned, but for all stakeholders of the education ecosystem. that yes, what is the kind of trajectory change we need, so as to ensure that all-round development is something that we're able to promote. So I think, and also some other very nice, great aspects you mentioned, as well as say 360-degree assessment and aspects like life skills, emotional skills, and I think how to handle pressure, and most important, how to be happy. I think, which is the objective of life, right? At the end of the day, we all work to live and not live to work. So I think that is a great point, ma'am. So thank you so much for taking your time and for mentioning this very, very beautiful points and very relevant points. Monisha, ma'am, thank you so much. I think, ma'am, you deliberated on values to start with. I think very important. And values, we all would agree, the end objective, if you look at objective of the entire education system, beyond domain knowledge, beyond subject knowledge, is also to inculcate values, which are like the foundation stones for the entire life and for career. And they go much beyond academic years, into different phases of life. So I think very, very nice aspect you mentioned. And also, I think your last example that you gave in terms of how you ensured that students, they really appreciated the role that cleaners played, in the campus, and how important the role they play and how critical it is for all of us. And I think, as you mentioned, when they're hands-on and they did it themselves, they understood. And I'm sure this learning will be there to stay. So such active participation when students are themselves raising funds, painting those dustbins and putting them, I can very well imagine. So I think great effort. And also your approach when you said that teaching the next batch, I think that sums it up really, really well. I couldn't agree more. And all aspects will naturally be tested. So whether that be EQ, SQ, conceptual understanding, confidence, and all what we were discussing, right? Motivation level, everything. So I think, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time and for mentioning making great points. I think our esteemed educators had some great takeaways. Dr. Gaur, thank you, sir. I think you made a very important point that in today's age, a child will not only be assessed by his or her teachers, but by various stakeholders, various people with whom the child is interacting. And I think that is a very, very insightful and intelligent observation. We all would agree, in the course. And also, I think when you were discussing with regard to how to make online assessments really fruitful, the need to convince parents that, okay, this is the fairness of the system, this is how we expect things to be. I think that is really important, to really build those bridges, take them into confidence, because indeed it is this parent-teacher relationship, confidence, mutual respect, which will really take things a long way. When they're actually convinced, not only later, but in spirit, that, okay, this is why we are doing it, and this is how we should do it, and this is good for my child. So I'm sure in that case, they'll cooperate 100%. And also, I do agree with you, aspect like taking things step by step, and more focus on aspects like soft skill, peer-to-peer learning, environmental learning, family learning. These are indeed important. So thank you for that, sir. Barrett, sir, thank you. Barrett, sir, thank you so much for making some great points and for sharing your own real life examples, which always are so valuable and insightful, and for giving us a great start. I also thank members of our esteemed audience for their time today and for being there with us. We at Notebook, and as all of us understand now, with the second wave of pandemic, when things are so difficult, our thoughts and prayers with each one of you, with all our esteemed educators, students, and with each member of our great nation. We are sure that together, definitely, we will fight this out, and we look forward to better times ahead. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.
Thank you, Achin. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.